Hey guys, it's me, Amaterasu, back with another part 2. What if Deku was a villain? I've been seeing that this series is the least viewed series on the channel, but it doesn't matter. I'll still upload the rest of the fanfic for the few people who do like it. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this video. But without further ado, roll the intro.
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
My wheels got in my bag and I got all my feels. I'm getting this paper, I'm stacking a meal. I'm with your hoe in the house on the hills. Yeah. I'ma keep it real, had to sacrifice to try to get my bands up. Shorty wanna fuck with me, she see me on the camera. She said she in love with me, but really I can't stand her. She just want part of this life cause she see me on the ground.
Chapter 11. Facing the past, Izuku stepped into the large convention hall with his class and thousands of other students that had come to explore different high schools and study the paths to follow after junior high. Izuku's classmates were chatting excitedly about where they would go, or just about how great it was to get out of school for a day. So Midoriya, have you yet decided where you want to go? Ida asked. No, Izuku responded. I haven't really thought about school or its future in general in a long time. I don't know what I should or even want to do. The statement was completely true. He was already getting actively involved with his father's criminal businesses, and choosing a school hardly seemed to matter compared to that. But even before meeting his father, he didn't know. Ever since he was disillusioned by the quirk-based society and his dreams of becoming a hero had waned, there had been nothing to take their place. Have you? Ida said and paused. I know you have complicated feelings about heroes, but I think you could be a great one. Izuku turned to look at the taller boy with narrowed eyes. Why? I am not talking about your quirk, Ida responded quickly, waving his arm defensively. I think your experiences would let you be a better hero. You have talked about the importance of standing up for others, and I think you want to do that. I have also seen how you move in gym class. Do you practice gymnastics or martial arts? Sort of, but it's not to become a hero, just self-defense. Because you don't want to rely on a hero to come to the rescue? Partially. You are going to see the hero schools, right? Izuku redirected the discussion. I want to go to UA, it is the best high school and especially hero school. I guess it was stupid question, Izuku said. Their other tracks are top level too. You should come see their stand too. I believe you would have a chance to get in on any track. Knowing how strict you are with everything school related, that is pretty high praise, Izuku said. Fine, it may be interesting to see what they have there. I don't really have any better ideas. They walked through the crowded hall. Izuku settled on walking behind Ida, using the larger teen as a plow to get through the masses of people. He could focus on glancing at the stands displaying different schools. They tended to get larger and fancier as they proceeded through the hall. The best and most prestigious schools were obviously placed further back to pull people in. Izuku paid specific attention to certain private, prestigious and expensive schools like Somei, ones with no hero courses. He did not know what he wanted from his future, but he still valued quality education, whether it was a good school or getting pummeled to the ground by literal monsters and harsh battle training. At least he wasn't sore all the time, since getting the regeneration quirk. Healing wasn't just a matter of visible wounds after all. He could train harder and longer every evening and morning and not feel any effects by the time he left for school. It was amazing to feel perfectly okay every day, except the occasional dizziness and headache from stretching his quirk limit with such a powerful quirk. Getting to UA's stand didn't require searching, it having UA banners hanging from the ceiling and a big stage with a very loud man on it. Present Mike, Izuku muttered. I haven't seen him live before. But you have pages of notes on him and his quirk, Ida commented. It wasn't even a question. Quirk analysis part 7 pages 13 to 15, should probably redo him at some point. I was 11 when I wrote that, Izuku said, making Ida chuckle. What? Izuku asked. I am still trying to figure out what kind of person you are, and I can think of people in our school who couldn't keep such ordered records today, let alone at 11 years old. Okay, Izuku said and turned his attention back to the loud pro hero talking about different facilities at UA. Naturally, he spent most of his time on discussing the extensive selection of hero training sites, despite hero course being a small part of the overall student body. Yes, they had spent millions on fake cities and a giant stadium, but what did the other 80+% of the students have? Izuku's focus started wandering as his annoyance rose, and even present Mike's voice couldn't change that. Oh look, the villain wants to go to UA. Izuku froze. He knew those words spoken in that tone. They made his bully radar glow like a Christmas tree. His head turned stiffly like a robot until his eyes found the source and locked on target. Behind the outermost stands a trio of students had surrounded a fourth indigo-haired one and were literally pushing him around between them. The victim of their bullying didn't just not resist, but very intentionally kept his hands close to his body and seemed to be pressing his mouth shut, like saying anything might have proven the bullies correct. Dark patches under his eyes suggested he couldn't even sleep well. Come on, show them your villain quirk. You have to anyway if you plan to apply. Better do it now than hide your real nature. The words made Izuku squeeze his hand into fists hard enough that fingers pressing against his palm actually hurt and messed up the covering on the hole his quirk caused. An image of Bakugo flashed over the apparent ringleader of the trio. Flickers of flame flashed dimly by his fists as he started walking towards the group. He had let the same thing happen for so long. Turned the other cheek too many times, but no more. Now he had decided to change things, and he would start by not ignoring another in the same position he had once been. He grabbed the ringleader's arm and yanked him away. It was a real struggle to not break the bully's nose right away, but he was just a student, not a Nomu. What exactly has he done for you to call him a villain? Izuku seethed. Who the hell are you? The bully asked, regaining his balance after Izuku's sudden yank. Answer my question or leave, Izuku said, ignoring the bully's words. Why are you calling him a villain? Because he obviously will be, the bully sneered. You'd agree if you knew his quirk. So, you were exactly the type of garbage I thought. Judging someone just by how you view the quirk he was born with. Actions are what matters, and you are clearly the villain here. Oh, look guys, the villain has a little friend. Are you the manipulating type or the type that makes you quirkless? And I know what it's like to live as a quirkless person in this society with people like you around, Izuku said before thinking, and raised his hand, no longer squeezed completely into a fist. One of the bullies seemed scared and took a step back. The ringleader frowned. If you wanted to talk your way out of this, you should have come with a better lie. Would you like a demonstration? Izuku flexed his fingers and smirked in a very unusual, almost Bakugo-like way, though alone made him jolt. The bully misunderstood the reaction. Thought so. In case you didn't get it yet, this guy is a brainwasher. Better keep your mouth shut if he even tries to say anything. One wrong word and you'll be his slave. Brainwashing? That sounds cool and useful for a hero, Izuku responded without needing to fake enthusiasm. The indigo-haired student stared at him, showing real emotion for the first time, mostly surprise. Imagine all of the situations he could de-escalate instantly without needing to resort to violence like most heroes. Hostage situations would be a breeze to him. You would seriously trust someone who could control your mind? About as much as I would trust someone whose quirk could kill me, and there are many of those, Izuku said, though he was not sure how true the last part was anymore. His expression turned darker. They are often celebrated as great for heroes. Is everything okay? Ida asked from behind him. He had finally torn his attention from the UA hype. Bullies with Uehara's ideas on quirks, or close enough, Izuku responded without turning his head. They think his quirk makes him a villain, while people like them are more likely to do that. I would know. Right, a villain would know a villain best, the bully ringleader butted in. Izuku tensed, knowing one of those villain claims was technically true. Nevertheless, he stepped forward between the bully and his victim. You know, if you really thought we are villains, you would be smart to be more careful how you act. Why bother? It doesn't mean you're good at it. And quat. As the bully spoke, he raised his hand, middle finger bent under his thumb and finger flicked empty air. Stinging pain briefly struck the side of Izuku's forehead, making him jolt and glance to that side. No one was there close enough to have hit him. Cool quirk, Izuku remarked, but his tone was increasingly taunting. Doesn't seem to enhance the impact though, so you are limited by your strength. This time Izuku was the one whose shoulder was grabbed, though much more gently than before. He still moved to attack the person before his conscious mind had time to stop his arm. It was the indigo-haired guy he had come to help. You don't need to do this. I don't want you to get hurt for me. Yes, I do, Izuku responded quietly, and no, I won't. I doubt he can hit that hard. And quat. Izuku turned to face the bully with no fear in his eyes. This clearly made the guy angry, and he stared at Izuku with narrowed eyes. He raised his fist and punched down hard at empty air. The force struck up against Izuku's chin, making his head yank back. Izuku, are you okay? Ida asked. Izuku rubbed his chin. The blow had actually been strong enough to hurt, maybe even break something, but the pain was already going away. I'm okay. It just stung a little, he responded, only to get an invisible slap on his face. Stop this, Ida shouted. We are not allowed to use quirks in public, and that's an assault either way. Good luck getting evidence of anything. I'm just practicing putting villains in their place for after I go to UA and become a pro hero. They do not need to prove anything. You have already shown me enough to ensure you will never enter UA, a new voice said. Izuku turned around trying to find the speaker. Down here. Izuku looked down, following the sound. There was a strange white animal-looking person whose species wasn't quite clear. And who would you be, mutant freak? The head bully sneered. My name is Nezu, but you can call me Mr. Principal, the creature said and paused for a moment, gaining a threatening smirk, of UA high. Izuku stared at Nezu for a moment, uncertain how to feel about the pro-hero and principal of the crown jewel of the hero society. Slowly he realized what this meant for the bullies and glanced at their terrified faces. Izuku smiled. I find your behavior and attitudes inappropriate for my school. As my memory is quite good, I can assure you that none of you three will be accepted to UA on any track. Now if you would leave so I can talk with these decent young men. The trio of bullies stared at the principal for a moment longer. One of them left first alone, and the other two followed soon after. Izuku was left with Ida, Principal Nezu, and the indigo-haired boy who he turned to in favor of the principal. Are you okay? He asked. The other boy blinked in surprise. Izuku feared it was because not many others had asked that question before. Yes, he answered. They are afraid enough of my quirk to not cross certain lines. Oh, right, my name is Hitoshi Shinso. He held his hand out. Izuku gladly accepted the gesture and grabbed it with his own. Izuku Midoriya. Kenya, Idaho. I am happy to meet you all, Principal Nezu said and then pointed at Izuku, especially you. I saw most of what you did and many who walked past without doing anything. Have you considered seeking education as a hero? No, Izuku answered. I used to, but now I don't know what to do. Ida here on the other hand wants nothing more than to attend your school and become a hero. Interesting. This hall is quite noisy and crowded. Would you like to join me for tea somewhere more peaceful? Izuku briefly considered refusing straight away, but he saw the hopeful expression on Ida's usually so serious face, one that was reflected on Shinso's face. We would love to, Izuku said, waiting the we. Excellent, Nezu announced, holding one of his hands. Pause, up, please follow me. The tiny principal started leading them towards the back of the UA stage. Ida followed most enthusiastically as Izuku strolled behind him. Shinso glanced at the principal's back and stayed back next to Izuku and leaned towards him. Thank you. The principal is right in that not many people would get involved. You did. I'm glad you're okay, Izuku said, but to be honest a big reason I did it is because those are the kind of people I hate the most. I'm no hero. I've just experienced my own bullies and those who would judge a person by their quirk. I can understand those feelings, but you still helped me. You are even talking to me even though they told you about my quirk. And quad. Remember what I said about quirks that can kill? Izuku asked and then pointed at Ida. Ida could crush both our skulls with a kick. Does that mean I should be afraid of him? He doesn't seem like someone who would do that. And you don't seem like someone who is planning to take over my mind, Izuku said. Shinso's face tensed. He was trying to hold something in. A small glint in his eye was more than enough for a member of Midoriya family to recognize impending tears. Izuku brought his arm over Shinso's shoulder. So how does your cool quirk work exactly? Shinso paused looking at Izuku. He drew deep breath. If I talk to you and you answer to me, I can brainwash you to do whatever I say, with some limitations. It can't be anything that requires advanced thinking. How about your quirk? You said something about making those bullies quirkless. Is it some kind of erasure quirk? I didn't think people would consider those villainous since the effect is so short. Izuku's eyes widened, staring at the wall. He and his bad decisions. He still had a long way to properly control himself and his mouth. It is not like that. Then why? Should I stop asking? Actually, Principal Nezu said, I would like to know too. They had just stepped through a door behind the stage into some maintenance corridor with much less background noise. The principal had stopped to face Izuku, and Ida was standing next to him looking confused. My hearing is very good, you know, Nezu said. Speaking of which. Nezu turned around. As Izuku raised his eyes from the small principal, his blood froze and started to boil at the same time. All Might had just stepped out of a nearby room in his colorful skin-tight costume and with the ever-irritating smile he had when failing to save Izuku's mother. Had his father not warned him about One for All's ability having resistance against being stolen, Izuku might have thrown away his cover to end the so-called symbol of peace right there. Oh, Mr. Principal, did you ask these students to join you for tea? Well, yes, I did. They are quite promising young men, especially Midoriya here. All Might followed Nezu's raised paw to Midoriya, who struggled to maintain his calm as visions of this man standing over his mother's corpse flashed in his mind. He still noticed All Might staring at him, his eyes widening before turning to face away from the man. He turned to Nezu, trying to ignore All Might. He briefly met Shinso's gaze. All Might, Shinso spoke, gaining the hero's attention. I have a non-physical quirk that people fear. Can I become a pro-hero? That would be dangerous. Hero work is already dangerous as is, and even more so if you cannot use your quirk to protect yourself in battle or other dangerous situations, but there are those who have surpassed that limit. If you get into UA Hero course, you may in fact have one of them as your teacher. It would require immense amount of work though. Thank you for answering. What are you doing here? Izuku asked. He pushed his emotions out of his voice, leaving it monotonous. All Might looked at him again with a strange look in his eyes. I am supposed to announce this on stage, but I guess it is okay since you are back here. I am going to begin teaching at UA next year. Sir, Ida finally joined the conversation. My name is Tenya Ida. It would be a great honor to study under you. I will do everything I can to earn a place in UA. That's the spirit, All Might declared and gave Ida a thumbs up. By the way, did I interrupt something? I believe you were talking when I arrived, Mr. Principal. Oh yes, a few students engaged in quirk-based bullying. We were just talking about these young men's quirks that attracted such attention. I am afraid you need to hurry to the stage though. We don't want to disrupt the program. Of course, Mr. Principal, All Might said quickly with some mix of respect and fear in his voice. As he left, Izuku drew a deep breath as tension left his body. His hand he hadn't even noticed shaking calmed down. Please follow me, Nezu said. He looked straight at Izuku as he did and then turned around to enter the room All Might had come from. It was a break room with 3 small sofas, a low table between them, and a kitchen corner. The principal directed the trio to sit on one of the sofas and settled opposite to them. A water boiler was already ready and full on the table so he could start making tea. Now where were we? Oh, yes, you were talking about your quirks. I already heard about Shinso's quirk, but there was something interesting you mentioned about yours, Midoriya. You said something about making people quirkless. Izuku had really screwed up. Nezu's knowing stare told him the little creature was already suspicious, and Izuku still remembered All Might's surprised look. Thinking about this only delayed his ability to answer. Ida started speaking instead. I am not sure what this thing about making people quirkless is, but Midoriya's quirk is called Dragon Blade, a fire quirk. Really? Shinso asked, clearly skeptical. That doesn't sound like a quirk that you would get bullied for. While Shinso expressed his feelings out loud, Izuku's attention was on Nezu and his piercing stare. Had he figured it out? Could they track Izuku to his father? Izuku was sitting tense between Ida and Shinso, pressing his hands together between his legs. He could keep lying as best he could, but if Nezu suspected something, getting caught lying would be more suspicious, and as principal of UA, Nezu probably had access to quirk registries. Izuku was still marked as having the quirk transfer. Ida, he started, his voice quiet. The Dragon Blade, it isn't my quirk, not the original I was born with. I just acted like it was so I wouldn't be bullied like in my last school, like Shinso is. It didn't end when I gained my quirk, because my quirk made some of it worse. Izuku jolted when Shinso grabbed his arm, but the indigo-haired teen had an understanding smile. He was the only one who could understand what it took for Izuku to talk about the topic. Like Shinso's quirk, people fear what mine can do and think it's evil, that I would or can only become a villain because of it. So, you weren't lying when you said it can make people quirkless? Shinso asked. No, my quirk is a quirk transfer quirk. I can take people's quirks from them or give them if I have any, I think. All it takes is a touch. Izuku raised his hand in front of them. I can also use the quirks that I have taken. That is a very unique quirk, Nezu noted. What kind of quirks do your parents have? My mother had a weak telekinesis quirk. My father breathes fire. So, it would be a mutation. Now this Dragon Blade quirk you talked about? Nezu asked in a lower, more serious tone. His expression was similarly serious, but he hadn't had any major reaction to hearing of Izuku's quirk. I was almost kidnapped a while back. And quat. Ida and Shinso gasped. During the struggle I took one kidnapper's quirk. He was so shocked I got away. I never talked about it with anyone. People would just blame me for stealing the quirk. Is that the only quirk you have taken? Nezu continued. You also think that I am some villain going around stealing quirks, Izuku accused, even if there would have been an element of truth in the accusation. For that evaluation I need to know what you have done, not what you can do. Izuku sighed and closed his eyes. I first discovered my quirk when I accidentally took the quirk of one of my bullies. Actually, my hair turned white first, but I didn't think to be careful after that. I gave it back when I figured out how to with my mom, Izuku said, not that he deserved it. If anyone in my old school behaved like a villain it was him, but everyone thinks he would be a great hero because he is strong with a flashy quirk. I cannot comment on that without having seen it myself, Nezu said, but what you describe is what often happens when quirks manifest. You can never be sure what kind of quirk a child will have or how it manifests. You should have no worries about the morality of how you have used your quirk, if you have been honest with what you have told. It would also be highly useful for a hero to neutralize villains with dangerous quirks with minimal violence. The same applies to young Shinso's quirk. Have you considered applying to UA Hero course? Yes, both Shinso and Ida said simultaneously. Izuku stayed quiet, looking away from the principal awkwardly. Midoriya? Nezu asked. I used to want to go to UA Hero course, but now I don't know what I want anymore. Because of the bullies? Nezu wondered. One of the most important aspects of being a hero is wanting to help people no matter what, and you just demonstrated that with Shinso. I hope you aren't allowing your bully's words to hold you back from your dreams. You clearly would not support Shinso here doing so. I don't know, Izuku responded, still looking away, unwilling to let out his other reasons, even those that didn't involve his father. Very well, I am not going to try to pressure you. Just know that as the principal, everything I have seen tells me you would be a great hero. Same goes for you, Shinso, but you should take All Might's words to heart. Your quirk can help you become a great hero, but that alone is not enough. Just to pass the entrance exam and get into my school, you need to train your body as well as your mind. And never forget the hero's first duty is to rescue. I will, Shinso promised. Excellent. I will wait to see you at the entrance exams. I would love to talk with you even longer, but I must soon get on stage. Oh, Midoriya, whatever you choose to do with your life, never lose that will to help others. Sometimes being a hero means getting involved somewhere you don't need to when everyone else walks by. Izuku didn't answer as all of them got up. The trio of students bowed, following Ida's lead, and thanked Nezu for the tea. Nezu walked with them back to the large hall and wished them the best. They walked past the UA stage. All Might was there talking in his usual pompous way to an audience that had tripled in size. Izuku purposefully looked away as he walked between Ida and Shinso. The two looked at All Might as they went but didn't stop to watch. Probably didn't feel like it much after meeting the man personally. I still cannot believe we got the honor of talking with both the UA principal and All Might himself, Ida said, holding one of his fists in front of him. To think he is going to be a teacher at the school. My motivation to study hard has never been stronger. It would be an amazing opportunity, Shinso agreed, but I'm worried of the principal's words. I've been so focused on proving my quirk isn't evil, I haven't thought much about the physical requirements. I only have a few months to get into shape. And learn to fight, Izuku added. Whatever your quirk is, they expect you to be able to fight. Right, that too. I'm not sure where to start. Would you like help? Izuku asked. Do you know how to fight? A bit. I've been training for several months, since the kidnapping thing, but it has been quite harsh training. I'm not sure, Shinso said and looked down while holding the back of his neck with one hand. I don't want to be any more trouble to you and there's nothing I can give back. You can be my friend, Izuku blurted out. All three of them stopped walking. You might be the only one who understands why I haven't had many in my life, and it is nice being around someone who can know my quirk and not jump back every time I raise my hand. I think I can do that, Shinso said. Izuku just smiled. Shinso eventually raised his head and looked Izuku in the eyes. I am guessing you want us to keep your real quirk secret? Yes please, Izuku responded. You too, Ida, especially you. I understand. I can't completely approve of lying, but I will respect your wishes. It shames me to admit, but some people in our school would treat you like those in your last one if they knew, especially after the presentation we did last term. I see how you would have found the information. And quat. Izuku started. Right, it really didn't help my mental state at the time since it was the only case of someone with a similar quirk I could find. About my classmates, how about you? I heard what you said about my kicks. I cannot argue against the arguments you made. I just wish you can consider me as a friend also, even though I might not understand what you have gone through. Izuku looked at Ida from the corner of his eye and raised his hand, its hole now visible. He put it on Ida's shoulder as the taller teen saw him do it. Ida didn't even flinch. Izuku smiled softly. Sure. And quat. Chapter 12. A new plan. Izuku was a bit bummed when Shinso took a different train after the high school fair, but at least they had exchanged numbers and he could still walk with Ida. It felt different than usual, better. He was more relaxed around Ida despite still having a mountain of secrets to keep from the taller teen. His more concerning thoughts raised their ugly head only as Izuku came back home alone. He had really screwed up talking about his quirk with the UA principal close enough to hear. There was still some time left until his normal training would start, but Izuku didn't want to wait and pulled out his phone, sending a secure message to Kurogiri. A portal opened in the basement gym less than a minute later. He exited the portal at his usual training room next to Kurogiri. Your father has not yet arrived, but I will fetch a training Nomu, Kurogiri said. No, I need to talk with Dad. He is still in the medical room to check up on his condition. I can send you there. No, Izuku said. It's close and I don't want to bother you too much. You already helped Dad and Tomura all day. As you wish. Izuku jogged out of the room and down a dark hallway and eventually into the familiar room where his father kept track of his health. He was just on a computer talking with Tomura apparently when Izuku entered. You are early, his father said. How was the fair? A lot happened and it wasn't all good, though I learned something about All Might too, Izuku said. His father stopped mid-motion while putting his collar on. His head turned so his non-existent eyes were staring at Izuku. Izuku was poking the tips of his index fingers together and looking away. I may have talked with him, and the principal of UA. Who now knows about my quirk. Well, that was a quick game over, Tomura snickered on the other side of the computer screen. Through the screen Izuku could see he was in the bar and Kurogiri was already there too. You should sit down and start from the beginning, his father said. Izuku quickly explained what had happened from Shinso to the tea moment with Nezu. What have I told you about carelessness? He tisked after Izuku finished. You talked about your quirk to some of our worst enemies. I know. After he first got suspicious, I thought he could find out from quirk registries anyway. Yes, at that point talking about your quirk and holding on to your cover story was the right choice, but things would have never gotten to that point if you were more careful. Izuku didn't say anything, just held his head down. Feeling sorry he almost missed a quick motion and was a bit too late to dodge an air blast from his father. He doubled from an impact on his stomach. And it seems that wasn't the only time you were careless today. Remember to always be aware of your surroundings, even when being disciplined. He shot another blast that Izuku dodged this time. With third he had to vault over an all too familiar hospital bed and the blast still hit his leg, drawing blood. The blasts were stronger than when his father first started this training. It hurt to land on the injured leg, but by the time Izuku got back his balance and checked, the wound was gone. You are improving, but you cannot always rely on the regeneration to cover for your failures. As for your other actions today, they may not be all bad. We can turn this into our advantage. If All Might is going to teach at UA, it narrows down where he can be at any given time. We just need to know exactly where and when beforehand. It still wouldn't be easy. UA has ridiculous security, Izuku said. Their main campus has, but teachers sometimes leave their school too. With UA there is finally an opportunity to monitor All Might for such opportunities, or you have one. Me? Izuku asked and stared his father. As I understood, the principal of UA encouraged you to apply. Since he knows about your quirk, All Might will also know. They will likely try to contact or keep an eye on you as a potential threat, so why not make it easy for them? Izuku's eyes widened as he realized what his father was suggesting. How would you like to study in the UA Hero course? While Izuku was left speechless, the only sound came from the computer speakers as Tomura almost choked on his drink. If All Might is going to teach at UA, then the teachers and students are going to have closer access to him and his location than anyone else. It is a unique opportunity that one of us happens to be in the perfect position to exploit. It is not risk-free. They should already suspect connection between us, though All Might most likely believes I am dead. But ... and quat. Izuku started. Are you going to doubt your ability to get in, or you oppose the idea? His father asked. Because you don't want to surrender to the system? The first is lunacy. You have defeated Nomus before. Most other applicants will not stand a chance in the practical exam, and the written should not be an obstacle for a smart boy like you either. As for the other, infiltrating the hero society is not the same as surrendering to its values or people that wronged you. You might also get to face that Bakugo kid. Izuku tensed from the mere mention of the name, feeling a strange mixture of anger and fear. See, even his name alone still has power over you. That won't do. I could send Tomura to deal with him in your place, but that might not solve the issue. Sounds like a fun side mission, Tomura said. So, I don't have a choice, Izuku said, looking down. Of course you have, son. I have left everything in your life for you to choose so far. I am not about to begin with something this risky to you as well as us. If you are to have any hope of success, you must make the decision yourself. I'm not sure I'm ready to make it. I mean, I don't know what else to do in terms of school, but UA, it just doesn't feel right, even if I go there only to spy. Not that there is anything special for me in any other schools. Except your friends, well, at least the Ida kid. I doubt your newer friend is going to make it to the UA Hero program without significant help. You could ask what his second choice for a school is if you aren't interested in infiltrating UA, though he might still get to the general studies. You are just using them to manipulate me so I would do what you want? Izuku accused, facing his father directly with irritation creeping onto his face. Yes, his father admitted, though your help with spying on UA isn't the only thing I want. Ever since Inko died I have only seen you smiling or genuinely happy with Kurogiri or talking about Ida, and now, Shinso was it? I could hear it in your voice when you were talking about today's events, despite expecting to get disciplined. If they are going to UA, I can't think of a better school for you to go to, for however long it might last. Even if you plan to work with us in the shadows long term, you should still get a proper education. Go alone somewhere that might just be another Aldera, or stay with the only friends of his own age in more than a decade while helping his father? The answer was obvious. Izuku had known it long before his father stopped talking. He simply found it hard to say. Going to UA. Being taught by All Might. The thought was disgusting, but it was all to bring down All Might. I'll do it, but only if we help Shinso. I want him and Ida around if Bakugo is at UA. Unless you want to risk introducing him to a Nomu or Tomura, the training he needs will have to come from you. It might also be good for you to train with someone on a lower level, just so you don't kill someone when you don't intend to. You think I could do it? Izuku asked. Certainly, the way you analyze everything you probably have every fighting technique I've taught you memorized with their strengths and weaknesses. Izuku thought about the 3 notebooks he had on the topic and thought best not to comment. So, we agree then? Yes, Izuku responded with more enthusiasm and started rubbing his chin. Shinso lives pretty far, so it would have to be weekends. Can't ask Kurogiri. Ida could help with the training. I wonder if Shinso's parents would let him stay over. Mutter. Tomura, make sure the league is ready for a fight by the time next school year begins. Izuku will get us information. You need to be prepared to use it. Yes, sensei. Oh right, Izuku snapped out of his muttering. I am supposed to spy on UA and All Might, but what are we trying to do with that information? And All Might, his father said in a chilling tone, possibly also take One for All, but end the symbol of peace either way. I made the mistake of allowing One for All to grow stronger before. I will not do it again even if the quirk is lost forever. But wasn't it your best chance to get healthy again? Izuku asked. It is one. With One for All's quirk enhancing abilities, my more delicate healing and transformation quirks might be able to restore my body as super regeneration would have if I had possessed it before my wounds healed naturally, as well as they could. Unfortunately, the regeneration itself is too blunt of a tool for that now without risk. So, there is another way? Izuku asked. Yes, rapidly cut away every damaged part of my body and hope I won't die completely before the regeneration quirk can act. Unfortunately, much of that damage is on my head and lungs. The doctor estimated 60 to 70% chance of survival, with a proper surgical team. So, you need One for All, Izuku concluded, and even if we could take it, that would require defeating All Might first. Tomura won't like me for saying this, but I doubt anyone or everyone in his league can do that. A quiet annoyed huff sounded from the speakers. All for One turned to look at the screen. Calm down Tomura, you already knew this. That is what the Nomu are for. The doctor has worked hard to advance past the low-tier ones that Izuku has trained with. Whatever pride Izuku felt over his performance in recent training sessions with the Nomus faded quite a bit with the reminder that they were low-tier and quad. He could never help his father defeat All Might himself as long as the only opponents he could barely fight weren't even thought of as middle class. You have only trained actively for half a year, his father said as if he had read Izuku's thoughts. No matter how many quirks you stack up, the amount of time you have to master them will not change. You can have talent or train harder, but that can only help against experience. Or genetic modifications to a point. I guess. That said, you should get another quirk to keep pushing your limit. Maybe, but where? I don't want to just steal a quirk from someone, and I really can't. If someone just loses their quirk, anyone who knows about my quirk will suspect me. True, that does not apply with someone that will not be around to tell anyone. Izuku stared at his father as a cold shiver passed through his spine. Tomura muttered something. A rather reputable assassin did not take well to your brother's attempt of recruiting him and he tried to kill Tomura. Kurogiri had the presence of mind to capture him much like your kidnappers back then. The doctor is exploring his Nomu potential, but I believe his quirk would suit you well. Right now you lack reach. So, what kind of quirk it is? Izuku asked. It is called Hellfire Arrow, an excellent fit with your blades. Depending how you are able to manifest them, you might even present them as a single quirk. And the person was going to be a Nomu either way? If the operation is successful, otherwise he'll be dead. The doctor can compensate for a missing quirk with a replica, but it is better for you to take the original with your quirk. Kurogiri will take you if you ask. Even a mention of the Nomu made Izuku's lips twitch in a slight smile. I don't know how I survived without him. I wish I could pay him back. Pay back to a Nomu? Tomura said and laughed once. Izuku stared at the computer screen annoyed. Sounds like you don't want him around. Maybe he should spend rest of the day with me. Kurogiri, come here. The misty figure walked into a portal in the camera feed and stepped out next to Izuku. Tomura stared where he had been and destroyed a barstool. That is fine to me, their father said. Make sure to train with him after getting your new quirk. I will come to the training room after I'm finished here. We will. Kurogiri wordlessly handed Izuku a bottle of lemonade. Thank you, Izuku responded with a new smile on his face, and sorry for ordering you. There is nothing to apologize for, young Shigaraki. Do you wish to go acquire your quirk now? I'd like us to go get it. Izuku relaxed as Kurogiri's mist covered him in darkness. Chapter 13, Training Izuku was spending his Saturday morning training against the Nomus, now all 3 of his remaining kidnappers at once while wearing his villain costume. He'd progressed enough to avoid or defend against their attacks most of the time without having to regenerate, but only cause scratches with his blades or local damage with his vibration. He had not gone for the brain since the one Nomu that died. He had been training harder than ever since agreeing to help his father by going to UA, but he still wasn't set on it. It didn't feel right, not after everything that had been done to him, or everything he had chosen. Not to mention he would have to have All Might as his teacher. Going to school with Shinso and Ida was an attractive idea though. You aren't focused. His father shouted. Is this how you're going to fight when you face Bakugo? He's going to declare you worthless all over again. Is that what you want? Even if you manage to win like that with your quirks, that won't change your value without them. It won't prove people were wrong about quirkless people. Until you can beat him even without quirks, you haven't proven him wrong. Izuku didn't respond and blocked a Nomu's punch with his flame shield. By the time he recovered from the momentum of the impact, he had already reformed it back to a blade. He jumped away just in time to avoid an air blast from his father. The bang as it hit the ground reminded him of Bakugo's explosions. His father had upped the amount of force he used again. Not good enough. People are going to come after you. I am already a widower, do you want to add a father of a dead child to that? Izuku sliced a Nomu's arm off and instead of going for a kill jumped away as another attacked. He was biting his teeth together, swearing he wouldn't let his father's taunting get to him. He knew what it was for, but that part of the training was something he didn't want to play along with, even if the Nomus' old appearances as his kidnappers flashed over them. Maybe I should have left you with the Bakugo since Inko raised such a weak child, or taken you with me years ago before she taught you to be so soft. Did you ever even fight back when Bakugo came after you? I am sure he loved having a punching back that didn't even try to fight back because that is what Inko made you. Izuku's eyes hardened. He vaulted over the attacking Nomu's arm and brought his palm to strike at its external brain as his vibration quirk activated at full power. Visible waves crossed the brain like when a stone falls on the water's surface, and as the first waves reached the skull, the whole thing exploded into a formless mass. The other 2 Nomus rushed at Izuku only for both of them to lose their hands to his blades, soon after those fiery weapons finding themselves penetrating the Nomus brains. No chance for regeneration. Izuku was left breathing hard in the middle of the 3 Nomu corpses, his dragon blade still active but twisting and bending with his emotions until his eyes found his father and hardened. The blade straightened and stretched even longer and sharper than before. Izuku raised one of them at his father and started walking towards him. Leave mom out of this. She isn't some training tool you can drag out whenever you want to push me. No more. No, he answered. Izuku stared at him and took a step closer. As long as you can be influenced by those words, they are a weakness that can be used against you. Until you realize that, they might as well help raise the anger you need to surpass your limits in battle. You can find another way. She was a great mom, and I don't want her involved in this even if she's dead. I am not going to fight or, he stopped briefly to look at the Nomu corpses, kill because of her, not even Nomus. Even if you weren't with us, you should respect her memory at least that much. Izuku stopped a few steps from his father. Suddenly the man smiled so wide even his breathing mask couldn't hide it. Finally, I can feel it, a true threat, and you didn't even stutter. Not many would stand up to me, family or not. Dad, I mean it. Leave mom out of it or I'll let All Might know you are alive, Izuku said without any wavering in his voice. His father's smile disappeared instantly, his face tensed and his hand squeezed into a fist. That's what I feel like when you attack mom, betrayed. They stood opposed to each other in silence for a long time. Slowly the smirk returned around father's mask, followed by a chuckle and eventually full-on laughter. Impressive, most impressive, you are truly my son. You went straight for effective threats and blackmailing using information you have gained. Very good. Fine, I won't talk about Inko during training anymore. Izuku still stared at him, confused by the rapid mood changes. He barely leaned away from an air blast directed at his face, but his father moved faster than he had ever seen and grabbed Izuku by his shirt before Izuku could evade. Izuku's feet left the ground. Never even suggest betraying us to the heroes, especially All Might. And Quat. He held Izuku up for a moment in silence and then put him down gently. That wasn't very fatherly, I guess, but there are some things I won't tolerate even from family. I wasn't really going to do it, Izuku said, not after all that he has done. I know, his father responded much calmer. I should congratulate you for your combat prowess. There is a not insignificant percentage of pro heroes who would lose against 3 Nomus, though you were still unable to react to my attack. He said it, but the words lacked the bite it usually had when criticizing Izuku's performance. The training was over, and he was turning back from trainer to father. Izuku himself was calming down enough to notice the difference and consciously not look at the corpses. It wasn't just the realization he had killed the creatures that worried him, but it also felt good, like a weight had been lifted off him. Now there was nothing left of his kidnappers except bad memories, and that felt relieving. Part of him thought it was sick to feel that way, but he was still going to be happy to never see these nomas again. Your goals might have grown, but we started this training so you wouldn't endure that again, his father said with perfect timing. Izuku wouldn't have been surprised if the man had a mind-reading quirk. It is safe to say you have reached this goal. Try to put it behind you and focus on what is ahead. They stood in silence for a moment. So, Izuku started, do you think I am ready for UA? For the entrance exams, more than ready. Have confidence in your skills. For your mission there, however, there is at least one more test you need to pass so we know you can do whatever the mission might require, one that the nomas are not sufficient to provide. What test? You will see. Meanwhile, you should take pride in what you achieved here today, and without any broken bones. You have also impressed me with the other jobs you have done. Tomura might be unwilling to use your analysis, but your ability to see how to best utilize people he has recruited is impressive. He paused for a moment and grabbed Izuku's shoulder. You can spend the rest of the day with your friends. Try to enjoy yourself. Befriending likely future heroes may not be the wisest option, but as a father I can't deny they have raised your mood more than anything since. Inko. They accepted me for what I am, Izuku said quietly. Only part of it. Don't forget that, his father corrected. Being what is considered a villain is different. Even if they found out and didn't accept it, at least that would be for my choices, not for how I was born. I can live with that, I think. True, but that won't change how they would act if they knew, so try to keep the secrets you still have left, especially once you are around pro heroes at UA. You cannot spout out whatever you feel like the moment someone pushes the right buttons. Either you get angry and say something you shouldn't, or flood the room. Izuku evaded his father's eyeless gaze, embarrassed at the last comment. You should also realize the potential consequences of helping your friends enter UA. I know what it might mean eventually, but it is their dream, and if people see different quirks being used by great heroes, that might impact how they treat others with similar quirks. Even if they don't, every good person that doesn't get in is a spot that a Bakugo can take to become rich off a lucky quirk. Thinking so far ahead, I wish I could teach that to Tomura, his father said and took his hand away. What are you still standing here for? You are going to be late. Izuku went to change from the black uniform to a regular long-sleeve shirt and loose pants he used for exercise. He had just finished when a portal appeared under the sweaty uniform he had piled on a table. Izuku turned to face Kurogiri. He was afraid of how the Nomu would react to the fate of the other three Nomas, but couldn't help but smile at his favorite Nomu/teacher/guardian. Kurogiri handed him an ice-cold bottle of water. I heard you were able to defeat 3 of the training Nomas simultaneously. I am proud of your progress. The fear was gone and Izuku stepped into the mist and appeared at his basement. Passing the hot pool, the thought of a bath was attractive, but he wasn't done sweating yet. He took a waiting backpack, got out and started running across the city. Training and even regeneration had greatly improved his stamina, but by the time he reached his destination, he was panting. His breathing sounded like a villain that had reminded him of his father in an old sci-fi movie he planned to watch with his friends. Hey! Izuku turned to face Shinso, walking calmly towards him carrying a backpack and an extra-large cup of coffee. Hey, Izuku responded, it seems we got here before. Something whooshed past the two on the empty lot they stood in front of. Idaho one day, Shinso said. Unlikely, Izuku said, unless you know someone willing to loan me a speed quirk. Excluding the current company, Shinso sipped his coffee. I don't know many who would stay in the same room with either of us voluntarily, at least not without getting nervous. Izuku stepped through an open gate into the fenced-in empty lot and activated his dragon blades. People are fine with slicing and burning or deadly force in general, but being a threat to their quirk or mind is too much. And quat. He turned to face Shinso while forming both of his blades into shorter and thicker shields. He also tuned down the heat as much as he could. Unfortunately, the entrance exams don't care about how we feel, especially with UA. Their robots are infamous. If you are finished with the coffee, let's see if the caffeine did you any good. You aren't going to get to those robots' weak points if you can't get good hits past my shields. Just let me get my gloves, Shinso responded and pulled out thick blackened and charred boxing gloves from his backpack. Izuku picked up his water bottle in the meanwhile. He was still drinking when Shinso got his gloves on and charged. He thought he could catch Izuku by surprise. Izuku dodged out of the way of Shinso's first punch and blocked the other with the flaming shield on his free hand while still holding the bottle to his lips with the other. Can you at least pretend I'm giving you a challenge? Shinso whined. Sorry, Izuku said, but you're the one who attacked while I was drinking. That was unsportsmanlike, Ida commented as he finally slowed down and joined his friends. If you want to get into UA you should forget that word, Izuku corrected and focused on Shinso. There is nothing wrong with striking when your enemy is distracted, unless you underestimate them and strike carelessly. You were too slow and overextended your arm. I could have cut it off when I dodged. Those exam robots don't have blades. Probably, but they could break your bones if they get a good hit in or if you get in their way when they are moving. So, more dodging training, Shinso said. Yep, Izuku confirmed. Has Ida gotten any better at accounting for his speed when holding back? Nope. He'd have to literally pull his arm back or stop at the last moment, Izuku said and turned to look at Ida. There is not much point for you to be any faster in a battle until you can maneuver better. You'll just be a bull charging through the red cloth and into the wall of the arena. At worst you will hit someone at speed and kill them. The stupid entrance exam with robots won't account for that either. And quad. I understand that, though it shames me to admit I have not sufficiently addressed the issue before. Not surprising, Izuku said. Most of the time people only think how to make quirks stronger. Try not to hurt Shinso too badly. It's your turn to pay the bill if we need to take him to that quirk healer. Izuku pointed at a large sign of a medical clinic on the next building and lowered back into a fighting stance. At least you know how to hold back, Shinso said. Yes, well depends how I'm attacking you, Izuku said and blinked. I haven't yet shown you my newest trick. What trick? Shinso asked with narrowed eyes. Izuku focused on using 3 quirks at the same time. He held his hand partially open towards the ground near Shinso. The vibrating flames of his dragon blade twisted with the presence of the 3rd quirk, making them all look like one. Suddenly an arrow of flames left his palm, pulling some of the dragon blade's flames out with it for the same effect. In an instant the flaming arrow hit the ground behind Shinso with a flash, leaving behind black scorched ground. It doesn't really pierce through anything yet, but that might just be a matter of control like with the basic blade, Izuku said. It's still kind of hard just focusing enough to fire one off. You continue to impress us every week, Ida praised Izuku, though you are correct if you suggested using this technique for Shinso's training would be unwise. Agreed. I'd rather get slapped around by Idaho my turn first. Izuku got back into a fighting stance and went straight for a punch. Shinso partially dodged, but Izuku still hit his arm. They sparred like that for half an hour. Shinso evaded some of Izuku's attacks but didn't get a single proper punch back. They were just too slow compared to the air blasts and Nomus. Eventually he got a single hit in on an exhausted Izuku. Okay. That's, Izuku gasped for breath. Enough. I need a break. Ida, your turn. Don't I get a break? Shinso asked with a deadpan expression as he took off his now smoking gloves. How many kilometers have you run today? Izuku asked with a similar expression. Point taken. Just let me get some water first. Izuku moved to sit on a piece of concrete left behind from when whatever building formerly stood there had been demolished. He pulled a thicker jacket out of his backpack to stay warm now that he wasn't constantly on the move. Ida ran literal circles around Shinso, making sudden dashes to slap his shoulder. It helped Ida train his maneuverability with the quick turns while helping Shinso with his reaction speed and dodging. Feeling the cold January wind even through 2 jackets, Izuku activated one of his blades and let it heat up to keep sweaty clothes under his jackets from freezing. Hey, you! Stop at once! Someone shouted. Izuku raised his head to see a police officer walk into the lot. You are not allowed to use quirks like that in public even if it is an empty lot. Ida hit the brakes instantly. The tenseness in his stance was screaming that he was on the brink of bowing and apologizing more than anyone should for using their natural quirks in a harmless way. Izuku extinguished his fire, pulled a folder of papers from his backpack and got up. Officer, he called, the public quirk use ban only applies fully in public spaces. This is a private fenced-off property and subject to limited exceptions as long as quirk use doesn't cause general danger and is permitted by the owner. The officer turned to face Izuku, looking down on him like some random thug or quirkless person beneath his attention. Are you going to claim you own or have the owner's permission to use this property? Yes, the second option. I have here a written permission from the developer that owns this land for me to use this property till the end of February along with any person I choose to invite here regardless of my presence. It specifically highlights permission to use quirks to the fullest extent the owner can permit. There are also documents containing parts of the police code and precedents by the courts on what is considered permitted quirk use under such conditions. And quad. Izuku held his in one hand and handed the folder to the officer, who grumpily skimmed through the papers. The last paper contains the contact information of my father's lawyers in case you need to ask for clarification. The police officer handed the folder back to Izuku, biting his teeth together. His next words were almost a hiss. You may continue, apologies for the disruption. He walked away. How does anyone manage to train enough to have a chance at UA with these rules? Izuku sighed. Being lucky. Or rich enough to have good lawyers, Shinso said. No offense. None taken, I am just glad I could use that to help. We can't get into UA without a place to train. Both Ida and Shinso stared at Izuku, who blinked in response. What? You said you were going to go to UA, Ida pointed out. Did I? I didn't mean to. I mean ... and quat. Izuku stuttered until Shinso grabbed his shoulder. You can say what you meant if you want, or not if you don't want to talk about it. Right. So I don't know where else I should go, so I might as well apply to UA. I got a good feeling there might at least be a couple of people there I like. That is amazing, Shinso said, so exited his eyes almost didn't look tired. It would be great going to same class or even just the same school, if I managed to somehow get in. Even with training, there's only so far I can go fighting robots. You will do fine, Izuku said with no sign of the hesitation he had when talking about himself. I've actually been thinking about the exam. It is clearly biased towards physical fighting quirks, but I think there might be more. Remember what Principal Nezu said at the fair about it? That was almost 2 months ago. I can't exactly remember everything he said. Never forget the hero's first duty is to rescue. He said that as he was talking about the entrance exam. That never made sense seeing how he supposedly has the exam set up, unless he was hinting that there is something else going on with the entrance exam. The application to UA includes a pretty solid non-disclosure agreement about the content of the exam that wouldn't make sense if it was just fighting robots. Of course, Ida muttered. You are right. Even if the hero system has its biases, a school of UA's caliber wouldn't have that narrow entrance exam, I think. A hero's first duty is to rescue. What does that mean for the exam? They vary the details every year. Considering the supposed point system this time, they probably have people there acting like they are in danger or just give points for helping applicants that get in trouble. Hopefully they aren't counting on just students to keep each other safe. People could easily get killed or maimed beyond even the best quirk healer's abilities. Hopefully my training is enough to help with rescues then, though other quirks still have an advantage. It has to unless either of you know someone willing to loan you theirs for the exam, Izuku said. Both Ida and Shinso stared at him again. Right, your quirk can do that too. I almost forgot since you mostly use the fire, Shinso said. We can't use quirks most of the time anyway, Izuku said. There aren't exactly many chances to use my quirk and it won't help against the robots. You will have your chance eventually with living villains. Both of you can neutralize most dangerous people without even injuring them, Ida assured. It doesn't cause any serious side effects to people you use it on, right? Not for taking quirks as far as I know of. I think it maybe can have temporary effect if the person tries to resist, Izuku responded, watching his words, but I have noticed getting new quirks can be though. I wouldn't try to give someone more than one. That would still let someone have 2 or 3 quirks depending how they were born, Shinso said. That would be life-changing. I can hardly believe you just offered to do something like that for me, even if there really aren't any who would give their quirk for that. Then you have to train harder. And quat. Izuku raised his arm and lit a flaming shield. If I am going to UA, I refuse to do it alone. And quat. Well, it seems like we've come to the end of part 4 of What If Deku Was a Villain? I'm kinda tired, so have a wonderful day/night. Bye.